I'm delighted now to hand over to Stephen Friedrichs, the Chief Commercial Officer. I was going to do Operating Officer. The CCO at Embraer, or Embraer, as I've been told off in the past for pronouncing it. Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Al. I really appreciate this. And Alistair and Louisa, thank you very much for this event. I think it was about 8 years ago we attended one of the first ones. There was 100 people here, and that included Alistair and Louisa and the staff. And look at today now with 550 plus people at max capacity. This is, except for this event, they must have heard I was speaking. They're all out still having tea. That was the other reason why the panel and I were pretty happy. We were going to be after the tea break. You all be well caffeinated and having plenty of questions and asking us a few things. So again, Alistair, thanks a lot for this event. It's really content-rich and relevant information I think everyone is very pleased to be here for, and it's really become the event in the industry. And most importantly, the event also is expanding the pie, which I think is one of the key things and what we're going to be talking about with this panel, which is some of the new business models that have come into business aviation, and how do we go ahead and really expand the pie, expand the people who are flying on private aircraft. And with that, I'm going to ask that my fellow panelists introduce themselves and give a brief overview of the business model as they see it, that they're operating and running right now, and what the benefits are. So Glenn, if I could just start with you and run down.
Certainly. Good afternoon. It's impressive to see so many people still hanging in there, even though the cocktails aren't for some time yet. My name's Glen Heavens. I'm the chairman of Synergy Aviation. We're a UK-based operator, celebrating our 14th year in business. We operate a variety of aircraft, turboprops and the Citation series. And it's interesting to look at the way of getting new flyers into the market. We're quite a traditional business, just doing standard charter. So impressive to see some of the new models and maybe how they've worked. So on that, I'll hand over to Bernhard.
Good afternoon. I'm Bernhard from Austria. I'm one of the survivors of this VLJ hype a decade ago. And we are running 16 Citation Mustangs. I'm not sure if I really sell space, but certainly I sell time. And yeah, it's a traditional charter operation. And regarding new flyers, so we had last year 11,000 customers on board, and 350 of those were completely new to this industry, flying the first time in a private jet. So it's a 3% growth, which is fine. I wish we could do more, and that's it.
Thank you. My name is Simon Talling-Smith. I'm the CEO of Surf Air. We're a new model airline. We're not really a business aviation company. In fact, we're certainly not a private jet company. Most of our planes are not jets, and none of them are private. We're a commercial airline. We fly a schedule, but we do use the assets and infrastructure of business aviation. And so I think if you define expanding the market and bringing new customers into the market as getting many, many more people to fly on business aviation assets, then we are certainly doing that. We've been going for 5 years now. We fly about 100 times a day. We get up to 2,000 hours utilization out of our aircraft. We think we've got a great model.
Great, thanks for that introduction from everyone. One of the questions we were going to ask from Slido that'll pop up here in a few moments will be, have these new business models as represented by the panel members expanded the private aviation industry by introducing new people to the market? So we'd like your opinion on that, and we'd also like to see where that ends up by the end of the presentation. I think one of the interesting things is we had a discussion prior to this panel was who is the target market for your business? And Simon, why don't you just start off with that? Who do you think the target market is that you're really going after in the marketplace to sell the Surf Air business model to?
Yeah, our target market is fair and square commercial frequent business travelers. These are the kind of people who are flying around, short-haul flying. They've earned their airline gold cards, platinum cards. They're fed up with the service they're getting. They're fed up with waiting in lines at airports. But previously, they never thought that they could afford business aviation. In fact, 85% of our new members have never been on a private aircraft before in their life. And given that we have 4,000 members in the US, we've converted a lot of people already. So we're, as I said earlier, we're about commercial flying. We think that there is a big market to fill in between commercial flying in short haul, which has essentially become low-cost flying, and traditional business aviation, which is, you know, just a superb product but unaffordable for many of those commercial people. And we're fitting right in that gap in the middle.
Great. Glenn, anything to add to that?
I don't think so. The Surf Air model doesn't really work on the basis that most of the people in the room would understand. Primarily, we're not airline-based people, so using the types of aircraft we fly on for an airline business, an airline system, to be blunt, it seems high risk, but I'm guessing maybe it's working.
Good. Bernhard?
I would say I see also a shift in the demographics of the passenger. So far, we all worked in an industry where we served the baby boomer generation. And now the Generation Y comes slowly in, so the 30 plus. And I see more and more customers, passengers from this group. And I would say this generation puts more focus on time saving, and values time more than probably the baby boomer generation. That's why I hope that the market will open up and brings new opportunities by educating our real benefits, which is time saving or space, as we learned today. And demographics will help.
Well, that's interesting, and I think, Bernhard, maybe you can take this next question as well to start off. You've touched on the target market and who the customers are. What is the customer experience expectation, and what is it that you're providing as part of that experience?
I would say we really have to tell the prospects and the new entrants the benefit about the time saving. This is really the value in time. And I think in this industry, our overall product and message is about time saving. This is the key message. And sometimes we forget what is the real product behind. And I think we always have to go back and think what is our real product. And the real product is time and privacy. This is what the customer at the end pays and is looking for.
Great, thanks. Simon, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree entirely that the hook that catches people for sure is time saving. And if you're standing in airports wasting hours and hours every time you fly, then this is a very appealing way to travel. What we see with our members, interestingly, is the thing that is enduring, because they get used to the time saving very quickly. Like the second time they've done it, okay, this is normal now. What is enduring for them is the service they receive. And we believe very strongly that members should have a higher level of service than straight customers. And our members really value that, and I think that's what keeps them paying their subscriptions.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting hashtag, wouldn't it? We could say general aviation, business aviation, it's about time. And categorically, the only thing my company sells is time. If somebody wants to have fine champagne with that time, well, fine, but in reality, very few of our customers do. And it's interesting seeing new businesses coming into the industry that many of us have been around for a long time see, where they worry about having designer uniforms for the pilots and that the napkins fold in a certain way. It's important, or should I say has an importance, but absolutely getting it right in terms of getting the passengers onto the airplane as effortlessly as possible and to the other end and off again. That is it. And really, we must remember we sell time, and some of that and the decisions on which airports we use and what types of aircraft we use can change the time dynamic. It's not about the speed of the aircraft, it's about the time of the journey.
No, and that's really interesting, Glenn, because one of the next question I really wanted to get into, and this is something we had discussed a little bit more in detail on the phone, was how do you decide whether to use a turboprop, a single or a twin, or a jet to accomplish a mission? What are those key criteria that you're looking for as you decide which piece of equipment to put on for the particular trip?
A lot of that decision is made by the customer, but the decision, whether it's made by the operator or the customer, comes down to many factors. It's a great misconception that I enjoy that the King Air, which is one of the mainstays of our aircraft, is a cheaper aircraft. A brand spanking new King Air is exactly twice the price of a brand new Mustang, if you could buy a brand new Mustang. And operating costs actually for some jets are a lot less than a King Air, but you can't get 7 passengers to fly a certain distance. So it will come down to payload, runway length, and some of it comes down to what I call the after-dinner mileage. There's a significant number of our customers that fly on the Mustangs and the Bravos that we have rather than on the King Air, because after dinner they want to say, I came here on a private jet.
That's interesting. And Simon, I know you've got an interesting operation there, more commercial, but starting off with the single turboprop and now expanding into some twin jets, which I'm very happy about, so thank you for that. Any further comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, 90% of our fleet is still Pilatus, hoping to grow the Embraer section of that fleet. For us, it's about stage length and time and how many rotations we can get in a day. You know, we do have people who, for the right price, would fly on the Pilatus from here to Palma de Mallorca, but by the time we flew them there and got it back again, we could have had an extra rotation on a shorter distance by using the jet. So, you know, when you're factoring in straight DOCs, that's one thing, but when you're factoring in DOCs and utilization of your asset, then the number of turns you can get in the day, if you're driving a business that's based on turns, forces you to think hard about using a jet.
Okay. And Bernhard, how about you with the client base and the business model that you're running? Any consideration, or is it purely based upon what the customer is looking for?
First, I think the single engine turbine, TBMs, PC-12s, and King Airs are great planes. So they all have their
The
niche
King
in
Air
the
is, I'm not
market.
sure about the others.
And at the end, the customer decides, I think, with whom he want to go, yeah, and with whom he wants to build a relation. And then, of course, he looks at the bottom line, what's the price for the service. And I think there's some other elements. Every customer decides on his own what he values more or less. But it's also, we heard it today in the morning, it's about the added value in terms of service. There is an element for service and the customer is looking for. And it's how you create this bonding to your customers based on the service you provide.
Okay, thanks. And that's interesting. And one of the things that I think comes up next, and you've all touched on it to one extent or another, is when you take a look at the existing infrastructure, what needs to change to better accommodate these business models? What would you need in particular to do a little bit differently? And Simon, I don't know if you want to lead off with that. I know that's a passion for you right now based upon the way Surf Air is operating.
Yeah, I mean, we come at this business, as I've said, from a commercial point of view, so we need our aircraft really to be either flying or in maintenance. That's where aircraft should be. So all the time they're on the ground, we're losing money, and so AOGs are particularly painful for us. And what we've found is that the responsiveness, the ability to be able to get that aircraft back into the air again needs to improve, and it goes right the way through. It's not any one sector of the industry, it's the entire industry that is maybe used to, I think, from some owners, a more tolerant attitude towards downtime, AOGs, maintenance times, whereas for us, you know, we're used to having 767 in the hangar being maintained overnight because that's the time it's not flying.
Okay. Bernhard, anything different from your end as well?
So I agree with Simon that the tech support turning around an aircraft when it's on ground on AOG is an important key element for business models like we run, where there's an owner behind and you can find different solutions. So turnaround of the aircraft has a big impact. And then it's really about educating the market. As Simon told, we're operating in an area where we are in the threshold from the business and first class traveler and bringing him into business aviation, private aviation. And this education process is quite intensive in terms of time and investment required. So every initiative we see, and I think we have seen so many initiatives over the last 10 years, trying to educate the customer in various ways. All those different ways will help to educate the customer And coming back, demographics will help as well. So we have to attack the Generation Y because they are more receptive to the time-saving element. And I think those are the tools we need.
Glenn, anything to add to that?
I think the infrastructure is what the infrastructure is, and our business isn't really about changing infrastructure. It's making sure we deal with it in an appropriate way. Clearly, going back to the original question, what do? We sell time, being able to get through the larger airports that perhaps don't have the dedicated security. There's a kind of, the small airports are fine, the really big airports are fine. There's a little bit in the middle where sometimes they don't have a full FBO or they're trying to have an FBO just to take some more money off you. And actually the experience for the customer from car to aircraft door is slightly more truncated.
Great. Well, we've got some questions here from Slido, so I'll run through a few of them before we wrap up. We've got a few minutes left here, and I think one of the interesting ones is how important is innovation in the backroom tech to your business? Glenn?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Phil. The whole title of this presentation is about attracting new people into the industry. There's been a number of operators trying to do it, but ultimately fuel costs what fuel costs, crew costs what crew costs, landing fees cost what landing fees costs. It makes no difference what sort of innovation you want to do. You can't change those. The only successful game changer I've come across is Stratajet, that have done a fantastic job at actually bringing more people in by being a bit clever about what they do. It's not about empty sectors. There's lots of companies try and sell empty sectors, but the intelligence of using a partial empty sector, so if an aircraft's going from south to north, diverting it slightly. So other than Stratajet, I haven't really seen any other innovation that's changed anything tangible. There's various people that have sold something worth $10 for $5, and they've been very busy doing it, but being busy selling $10 for $5 doesn't really change things. So I'm interested if the other people on the panel actually know of anything else that has really made a tangible difference.
I would say technology plays a key role, I think, in all aspects of our future life. And by moving everything to mobile, we will bring more and more technology in all areas, and certainly in private and business aviation as well. And I think we have seen great initiatives. I mean, name it. There's so many here, like Private Fly, LunaJet, Stratajet, Flex, Fly Victor, JetSmarter. And I think it's like a kid learning, running. You have to try. You crash, you try, you crash, you try, you crash. So over time you learn what's the best method, and we will see, or I expect we will see some consolidation and some dominating players. There's a reason why there's one Google out there and there's one Amazon out there, and I think we will see here the same thing. The key element is to connect technology to the operators. So you have the front end to the customer, the user interface to the customer, to the potential customer, with all the marketing tools behind, with all the various business models. I do believe that membership has a future, but you have to reach the critical mass. The question is how much money it costs you to get to this critical mass. And once the front end is sorted, then it has to interface with the operator. And this is only possible by technology. And I know that big companies are looking after those things, like Arink, and they're doing great things. So connecting platforms, connecting technology, and having a full chain from the mobile screen down to the operator or to the cabin is key.
Thanks. Anything else from your end there, Simon?
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Good. And we have a couple other questions here, and I think the one I'd really like to tackle next is, what is the biggest hurdle that you see for your continued growth? If you just had to, you can pick top three if you had to.
It's still expensive to fly in private jets. This is it. It's the price point.
Okay.
So the number of potential customers out there is limited.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'd be the top three, but a big problem that's looming against the industry is a shortage of pilots. Mm-hmm. It's all very well having these aircraft. It's not that easy to attract pilots on a large scale. There's plenty of people that want to do this rather than go and fly for a major international airline, earn huge salaries, not work very hard, and get lots of holiday. Whereas in general aviation, we work a little bit harder than that. So I think that's a big issue that's coming to the industry. And on a safety side, the two biggest risks that certainly UK CAC is the quality of training for pilots that are coming in, and the other safety issue is drones. Whether that's a huge hurdle to overcome, I don't know.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, it's interesting, as we've seen a lot of that lately, especially from CES and everybody else, what's just gone on recently. So just to return to the whole turbine versus jet, do you think that the single-engine turbine operations are replacing the VLJs at this point as the entry to private jet charter, or will the second-generation VLJs succeed?
Maybe, I don't know. I think the equation is quite simple. I come back to the price point. Single-engine turbine aircraft, if it's around 4 million or it's a twin jet around 4 million, is the biggest cost driver. So whatever platform you're choosing, it comes down what's the cost of the asset. And this will then drive down to the price to the market for the customer. 1 engine, 2 engine, 3 engines, I don't mind.
Okay.
I mean, I'll give you one data point on this. We recently acquired a similar company to ours from Texas called Rise. They were flying King Airs. We've just replaced their King Airs with our Pilatus, and that move alone has elevated that into a profitable company. It was losing money before, and that one change made it profitable.
Okay.
I mean, I think the PC-12 is a fantastic airplane. Anyone looking to buy one, Edwin is your man. He's one of the nicest men in aircraft sales, and I encourage you to go and buy an aircraft from him. But in reality, I don't understand the swap. A lot of people talk about the cost. I don't believe a PC-12 per se is that much, if $126 an hour cheaper to operate. So the acquisition cost has turned that into profit immediately?
Well, it did help that we already had the aircraft.
Okay. Good. And then I think we could take a quick look and say, when you estimate the potential of new clients to upgrade in business aviation, is it size that you're looking at here? When you take a look at full ownership as well as aircraft size, how do you estimate the potential of such new clients to upgrade into business aviation? What's your business development model that you have working right now? Yeah.
It's a bit of a strange question. I'm not sure I fully understand it, but essentially having a long-established product means that the customers generally will come to us. I think that's more for Simon, because it's a different offering at a different price point, looking at a different person to come in. I mean, ultimately, people come in to be able to use these services because their wealth has increased. The target market for all of everything that we do is money. So most new people coming into the market will actually be because they've had a change in their personal or business wealth position.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, this is our biggest challenge. I think in a way, Surf Air, as much as introducing a new product, is introducing a new category. It's not an orange, it's not a lemon, it's a banana, right? So you show it to someone and they say, well, that looks like an orange to me. And you explain that it's not an orange, and then they think it's a lemon. It takes a long time to get people to really understand, actually, yeah, you can afford to have a private experience for a price that's pretty much the same as a business class commercial ticket. And just getting that into people's heads, that is very, very difficult.
Okay. Well, just to wrap up, because we've only got a couple minutes, just in summary, just to restate the unique sales proposition that each one of you has for your business model, and explain how you think it's expanding the business aviation client base today. So Glenn, I'll just run down the line, start with you.
I don't think my business is expanding the number of people coming into the market. We're a long-established business doing what we've done for quite some time within the realms of safety and profitability, which we achieve quite well. It sounds ironic with a business of our size and doing what we do, but we're more perhaps reactive than proactive. In terms of new people buying aircraft, I can't control who's going to buy an aircraft, but I can then try and move them in my direction in order to manage that aircraft. But I could spend $1 million on marketing, and that wouldn't necessarily attract those people to buy an aircraft if they weren't going to, or to trade their aircraft. So really, we're long established. I'm afraid we're not attracting new people per se, but if somebody comes into the market because of change in their wealth situation, we're happy to look after them.
Okay, great. Bernhard?
I think it's simple. We have, as an industry together, bring the message out there, time savings, and as mentioned earlier, maybe the shift in demographics will support all of us.
Okay. Simon, last one there.
Yeah, I mean, our proposition is pretty clear. Pay a single payment and fly as many times as you like for free, and save the time. I think we're unquestionably bringing new people into the business, right? I think the big debate is it the business or not, right? Are we bringing people into business aviation or are we bringing people into something else? What I would say is that we've been surprised that a very large number of our members who have come to us from commercial then develop a taste and start wanting to charter the aircraft. So they start wanting to ask for whole aircraft on demand, which is not a Surf Air product. We do it now and again,
Right.
but I would say 80% of those requests we then farm out to other operators in the business aviation world. And that's, I think, the kind of trickle-up effect that you're going to see Surf Air bring people into business aviation.
So you're definitely viewing yourself as broadening the pie, introducing new people, and then feeding them up the food chain.
For sure.
Good, good. All right, any other questions from the audience? Richard?
Yes, Simon, how do you see yourself? How do you see yourself shifting your jets? How many hours are you going to put on those? And then in your pricing algorithm, is that really the hard question of what to charge for a subscription price? You know, you charge some price, guy flies flies 3 times a day or something. What is that a tough algorithm to work through?
Yeah, I mean, those two things are actually pretty closely related because our business model is predicated on, at scale, flying the aircraft a certain amount of time. And that time is somewhere between 180 and 220 hours a month. And that's the kind of rate that we hit in California with that, where our business has been going for 4 years. Here in Europe, we're much newer, and we're way, way down that scale so far. And then, given what we know about how much we're going to fly the aircraft and then how many seats that aircraft can produce in a month. When we're going to, right. So typically, so far we've modeled 5 years at that utilization. Although as we've got into the business, we believe that that could do 7 or possibly even 9 years. And then that's just a discussion with our leasing companies. On the pricing side, we then factor in, A, the utilization of the aircraft, i.e. how much is the operation costing us? And secondly, what is the usage of the members? And what we do have is very strong data now, and it's incredibly consistent on the average usage of a member, how many times an average member will fly every month. And therefore, you matrix those two things together and you come up with a monthly fee. And that's actually a lot easier than you would think.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have anything to, burning questions, burning platform they'd like to know the answer to? Great, well, thank you guys very much. We appreciate it, and thank you for the panel members.
Thank you.